We've got some great panelists and a great agenda. And so my name is Matt Winslow. I'm the Director of FCT&L Initiatives, and I'm the moderator for this panel. The agenda for today is I have a few questions for the panelists, and so we'll all ask questions and they'll tell us what their answers are, but then we'll have time for questions from the audience. We've got Rusty here on Zoom, so he can ask us questions from the chat. So when you have questions, please put them in the chat. If you want to unmute and ask your question that way, that works as well. So I think what we should do is start out with some brief introductions. So let me just say that these are some of the faculty who took part in the Summer Institute last summer about the Canvas transition. So they spent, what, 3 days? How long was the Institute?
Initially, 3 in the weekly.
Yeah, so
Weeks.
they've had a lot of meetings, working together and working with Instructional Design Center. So they had a lot of experience transitioning into Canvas. So that's why we asked them to be on this panel. So let's just go down the line and tell us your name and what department you're in and a little bit about your course. Go ahead, please.
Camille Skubik-Peplaski from the College of Health Sciences, Occupational Science and Occupational Therapy. And my course is a all online post-professional graduate course. So people are from all over the United States. Actually, I had someone in Tokyo last year too, on the military base taking the course. So it's a different presence that I have to look for online, since they don't know any of the toe that's a picture on Canvas now. You know, the toe that you're supposed to touch, or Daniel Boone's toe.
Yeah.
So none of my students know anything about Canvas. And so I made sure I designed that in my Canvas course so that it was more universal approach to them.
Hi, I'm Maria Bane. My department is clinical therapeutic programs. My program is communication sciences and disorders. So I am training future speech language pathologists. The course that I developed was completely in-person, face-to-face. There's no asynchronous online component, but of course the LMS is an important part of the class. It was an anatomy and physiology course that all of our juniors take once they are admitted to our undergraduate communication disorders program. And I felt like it needed a little bit of a revamp because it really does lay the foundations for a lot of what they will learn about communication disorders.
Morning. Good morning. I'm Ray Lauk. I'm in the Department of Teaching, Learning, and Educational Leadership, and I teach school leadership courses. All of our courses, the master's and EDS level, are all virtual asynchronous. And the course that I just redesigned is the school superintendency in the Canvas platform. So we really live and die within these platforms, and they're really important to us. So it was a good experience to try that transition, having come out of the world of Blackboard exclusively.
Hi, everyone. I'm Beth Polin. I'm a professor of management in the College of Business. And the class I'll be talking about today is a team effectiveness and creative problem solving course. It is a senior level course that is taught face-to-face, but we do use significant components in Canvas as well. So lots to share.
Good morning, I'm Srgo out of Engineering and Technology. And the course that I not only redesigned as well was for AEN 506-706.
Could be a TV.
Yeah. That's better. Is that better? Okay, sorry about that. So the course I redesigned was a Six Sigma quality course. A little interesting because I have 2 sections of a 506 and 2 sections of a 706, a hybrid and online only. So I had the opportunity to figure out how to get all of these 4 sections in sync. So that was fun.
All right, pass it back down. Thank you. Okay, so the first question is, what is, for you, has been the most significant change from Blackboard to Canvas?
So for me, I like the three dimensionality I consider in Blackboard. So moving to Canvas, which I feel is more linear, and you have page after page after page, it takes a little while to get used to. But the most important thing, and the thing that's been beneficial to me, is the use of pictures and videos. The studio, and I have a great instructional designer, Jason's on, and he seems to love Canvas way more than I still do, okay? Because of technology and the use and the ability to use studio to make the course welcoming, to make the course all about the students and the content. I feel it does lend itself better to almost like having a relationship with your students through Canvas, where Blackboard, it's awfully black, okay? And it looks, it's not friendly as much, I don't think. I mean, I have pictures on there, but not like you can do in studio. So you can do personal pictures and you make a lot of videos. And I like where you host your videos, they're all there together. So I can, if I do a similar video for one course, I can go and pull it for another course. So there's a house for where I can keep all my videos and keep them organized. So I have liked that I've been able to create and mold the course around the meaning of my course. And like my course is about occupations. So I have a whole bunch of pictures of different occupations that people do throughout the course. And I also make it personal. I have my occupations that I have throughout the course in pictures and in videos so that people get to know me differently and more personally. So, and then and also the students can apply that content too and load pictures, load videos. So it's changed the formatting of my course somewhat to make it more visual. And that's great for individuals who have disabilities. So I can also highlight that type of platform where it's a more visual and so that's been helpful. And the easiest thing and the best thing that I liked about Canvas, I'm still not used to those darn pages and that you've got to sort through and you got to hit the next button a lot. But I like that on, at least on those pages, I can add color.
All right, I would say that one of the most significant changes for me in terms of what was a positive change is how I interact with the LMS to do grading and provide feedback. So Canvas, in my opinion, is far superior to Blackboard in terms of including a rubric with your assignment or assessment, providing feedback within that rubric. That can be, just like points, but it can also, of course, be written feedback. You can save that feedback. You can save any of your comments for use with later assignments. So in my experience, students tend to make very similar mistakes. And then I type the same thing 15 times, or I'm trying to copy paste that from a Word document I have saved somewhere. And that just takes me, it just wastes so much of my time. So I feel like the process for providing feedback is much smoother and then can be rolled over and saved, which is really nice. The biggest challenge for me, I think, in terms of what has changed is just managing some of the settings and moderating like quizzes or tests. It's not that you can't do it. You can certainly go in and provide extended time or an accommodation, but for me, it just looked different. And so it took me longer to figure that out. But by and large, most of the changes I found to be positive, where I preferred the way Canvas did it.
I've been here 5 years now, so most of the courses that I teach, somebody else had already developed for me. And so I'm just implementing the courses and following the structure that's already there. If I find some problems or issues that I want to change in Blackboard, it's kind of clunky and clumsy. And if I make one minor adjustment somewhere, there's probably a reference or a date somewhere else that I've missed. And so then there's this inconsistency. So sometimes it's just easier just struggling through it and just dealing with it. But I did develop one Blackboard course as well as obviously one Canvas course now. And the thing that I really like now, the biggest change I think has been that most of my time and attention is devoted to the content and not the architecture. Just one. It is a big one. It is a big one because with the templates that we follow in Canvas, it's really easy to kind of drop things in and go. I mean, you don't have to think about how you're building it and what the tools are, because it's really, really intuitive. And I think I saw my instructional designer, Tyler Robinson, out there. The relationship with the instructional designers too is invaluable. And besides the support that we get from the IGC, there's also the telephone number, 24/7, I believe it's 365, that we can get help with, and they've been very helpful. So just the ease in building a course and really being able to focus on my content has been the biggest change.
There are so many good things about Canvas, and one of them that I'll talk about that is what I see as one of the more significant changes from Blackboard is the idea that you can build something of your own. I'm going to call it a library of your materials. So for example, if I want to put together a discussion board, when I did this in Blackboard, I would go to the specific folder module where I wanted that discussion, and I would build that discussion, and it seemed like that's where that discussion lived. In Canvas, when you create a discussion, you do it through this discussions tab. And that discussions tab houses all of your discussions for all of your courses, not just for the course that you're in. And so anytime I want to reuse a discussion or modify a discussion or change where a certain discussion lives, it's always in that library, that tab of discussions that I've built. And then I can just drag it and drop it in all different places, all different courses. If I want to use a similar discussion, I can at least start with that as a template. So I might drag and drop that one to a specific module, but then I'll go in and edit it a little bit. And I can even then rename it, and it becomes a new discussion that's housed ultimately in that discussions tab. And what you'll love about it is this is not only true for discussions, but also for your quizzes, collaborations. Help me, colleagues. There's a couple tabs over there on the left side of Canvas. Ultimately, it just feels like you can build a library of your materials that are all there. When I worked in Blackboard, because I would lose track of where discussions or quizzes lived, I tended to do everything in Word documents. And then I would edit Word documents or change computers or use the cloud. I started getting a lot of copies of the same thing in a lot of different places. And then I lost track of what was the most updated, and you can sort of see the rabbit hole that goes down. But again, in Canvas, I have those tabs. All of my discussions, all of my quizzes, all of my collaborations are within those tabs, and then I can put them wherever I want to put them. It's just a much more organized way of storing your materials.
I would probably sum everything up by saying everything is better, but it really is, and we were talking about it before that I mean, I have some notes here, so I'll just run through them really quick. What I love about it, the user interface is just cleaner, more visually appealing. You've heard this a couple of times. It's much easier to use. Real novel, copy and paste is now available. Didn't realize that had to be a big issue in 2024, but it is. And especially in ours, in engineering, in what we do, I ask them, draw pictures of what you need, then put the equation down. Okay, and then just copy and paste it into an essay. Well, that was like virtually impossible, other than saving whatever you had to do in Blackboard. So this was, I know it's small, but it's huge for me. Better integration with Google Drive, Office. Videos, I think you heard about the studio. Whether that's old videos you brought in, new videos you're making, and YouTube videos, they make it so easy. Now, whether you want to put those videos in as right where whatever page you're in, you can do it that way. I prefer to make copies of those videos, or sorry, make a link to those videos and just put them where I want them. They can, so kind of what Beth was saying, you know, you have like this library of information that's much easier to go through. I use an Android phone, but I also have an iPad, and both of those are super easy. You're not going in, logging over here, hoping you can do this. If you click on it and you're on your pages. And you can customize everything. Now, I do love the template because it keeps everything organized. the EKU template, what they put in there for us. So that makes it real easy to keep everything pretty similar. The grade book, once you figure it out, not figured out, but once you understand how it's set up, I love it a lot more, and it's a lot easier than the Blackboard. It's hard to explain until you see it. Assignments are better and assessment tools are better. We can talk about that later. Accessibility, if you're worried about accessibility or if that's something that's important to your classes, it has its own built-in, the template itself is created to be more accessible, and then how you put information in can be tested as well. Those are the main things. There's a couple things that I know are better that I have not had an opportunity to look at yet, and those would be analytics and reporting and third-party integration. But I don't really know how to do those in Blackboard yet either. So.
Okay, so this next question might elicit some overlap with what you've already talked about, but it might not. So what specific feature or function in Blackboard are you the most excited about?
Again, mine is still Studio. And the Studio just gives you the ability to house all your videos, but then also engage and make them much more personal. But with as much as I like that, there is some complications in giving feedback on videos. And sometimes we have found, a colleague and myself, it's easier almost to go make a video in Zoom and then repost your video to give feedback. So I'm still learning on how to give feedback on the, because what we do in our discussion boards, they're video based. So being able to give comments on the video back and forth with several students at once can sometimes be challenging. And I know Serge said it too, it's easy sometimes to go back to your other tools like YouTube. You don't have to use a YouTube video in this. You can make the video right in Canvas. But again, if we feel competent in making a YouTube video, you can also post that link. So some new learning and giving up old learning is still the process and figuring out which one's the most efficient. But again, Studio and the use of Studio within your modules has been really helpful. It's my favorite.
All right, so I also really like Studio, just to highlight something different. I told you not to take my answer. But just to highlight something different in Studio. So one of the things you can do with the videos that you make in Studio is actually go back and annotate that video. So I know I've had the experience of being, I'm watching my video back and I'm like, oh man, I said that and that's not what I meant. You can actually just add an annotation to correct that for the student. You can also, it'll come up as like a little bubble, or let's say you forgot to show them exactly where on the slide you were talking about, you can actually annotate that after the fact. The other thing you can do is use those Studio videos to make quizzes. So let's say we want to be sure that the students actually watched that or that they got the main points you were trying to communicate. You can go back and drop quiz questions into the video, and then that will populate in the gradebook as a grade. You could certainly make it possible for students to watch it 3 times or whatever until they get 100%, if that's a setting that you want to use. So it's really nice because you can use that as an assessment tool. It will also add automatic transcripts for you. Canvas Studio will do that without, I would check them, but they're usually pretty accurate. So that's a nice accessibility feature. And then you can also use video to provide feedback, which I think you touched on. So when I'm grading, let's say I don't necessarily want to type a bunch, or sometimes my students, I think they take feedback better if they hear the way I say it. So if I write it, it might kind of sound like it's harsh, or I put a lot of time into trying to sound nice. And sometimes you can just actually do an audio or a video recording and say, give a message to the student, which is usually faster. I don't do that on everything, but I try to do that on at least a couple of assignments, especially at the beginning of the semester when they're getting to know you, they're still afraid of you, that kind of just personal touch is nice.
They're not afraid of you.
Yes, they are.
I would agree. Everything that was said about Studio and videos, I have nothing to add other than just my endorsement of that. But I think the thing that I really like too is the structure. I mentioned about the architecture, about the templates that are provided. Because if you just follow that template, you're pretty sure if you go through a Quality Matters evaluation, you should do pretty well, because it kind of makes it difficult to overlook some important aspects of a course design.
Okay, I have two things, one minor, one major. The minor, which has been briefly mentioned, but I'll just add to it. The transcriptions for videos are so easy, and they're probably, I'm gonna say 95% accurate, which is high. But when you have a video and you've been speaking or someone else has been speaking, it will automatically transcribe that. You just click this little button on transcription. It will bring up the transcription, will show you the transcription side by side with the video. If you want to edit the transcription, sometimes it'll get technical terms wrong. It's you literally click and you change the word, and it's so easy and it's so nice and it's so helpful for students then. The major thing that I'm really excited about is what I'm going to call the landing page. So when you click on your course, the first page that it brings up is this landing page for students. And that is so important because it's the very first thing that students see. Now, there's an excellent resource that's already out there that Factol or IDC has put together that is a mock landing page that I think anyone can use for any EKU course. But if you're feeling creative, you can go in and edit it or start completely from scratch. If you just Google Canvas landing pages or Canvas course start pages, Google will give you all these examples and ideas, and there are some absolutely incredible landing pages out there if you want to just use your own creativity. I think of it as when we shop online or when we go to a company website online, that first thing we see on that website really matters. And the same thing is true of our courses. When a student first clicks into your course, the very first thing they see, that's really important, and you can make that as creative and as interesting as you want it to be.
I'm going to reiterate, because it makes a lot of sense, the studio, and we're kind of using studio and video interchangeably, and it is, but both upstream and downstream. So from a student's perspective, I have put this semester a couple podcasts up, and instead of having them do a discussion, they do a video response to it, 2 minutes or less. And one of the reasons that we did that is, I think some of us in faculty said it, the issue with not being able to have multiple courses, not have different sections in the same course. So I had to come up with a way to get some feedback, and that's kind of, it works perfectly. The students love it. I did try something, and I guess I was lucky it worked, and you're going to understand where I'm going with this. And that is, I had them do analysis of variance, and I had them do a video response to it, because I knew that if they were going to go on ChatGPT or anything else, they can come up with a cool answer. But if they had to respond to it, I figured go and do what you need to, but it's going through your brain first. And I was floored. It was organized. I had my little cheat sheet there, and I was kind of following what they're saying. I said, wow. So that it forces them, no matter what they use, to make sure that it's their content. From my perspective, and I could, like on some assignments, I go ahead and give a video response. 30 seconds, hey, this is great. And one thing you can do is, and this was mentioned before, because if I'm reading something in front of your student, you bring me something, my idiosyncrasies, my impressions, my facial expressions are going to tell you a lot more than necessarily my words are. And by doing so, you can give your first impressions. Imagine reading a paper for the first time. You say, wow, great opening. That comes across a lot better than, hey, great opening written. So that was big for me. And there was the set and forget feature for me. This can almost happen to any course, and it does it so well. And because I'm kind of teaching on overload this semester, it was like 2 weeks, and I was like, I haven't looked at my course, because everything was just kind of going along. And so it kind of woke me up, say, hey, you guys better remind yourself to get back on there. And also another great feature is the design team. And I think this was mentioned as well. And the design team is great. We're not getting paid to say that, but they're really good. Whenever I had a question, especially in the summer, if one person didn't know it, they would reach out and the answer would come. So it's just not like the Blackboard stuff would go in one place and eventually we get an answer. So it's been great. So, I had one more, but I forget what it is.
I'll just add one thing, because Sergio reminded me of something that is, it's actually a positive, and a strong positive, is that in the transition to Canvas, one of the external links that we've got hasn't quite worked yet. But you raise the issue and you've got a team of the best brains on campus swooping down to solve it. And so the support that we get across campus for anything that comes up is amazing.
Yeah, big shout out to the IDC. They're understaffed and overworked, but they're really good at what they do. So, yeah, big ups to them. All right, the last question for the panel is, I forgot what it was. What is your best advice for the new user of Canvas, for someone who's just getting into it, and that's gonna be a lot of us? What's your best advice for them?
I'm so glad I get to go first for this answer. Sorry, you all. You have to attend Canvas sessions. I have been to several, even though we took this summer long course, I've been to several all semester, and there'll be maybe one or two people there with me. But they have, which is run by our IDC, they have some great resources. Brooke has got a fabulous folder full of resources. Plus, they've given us several things about Canvas crosswalk of going from Blackboard to Canvas. They've got some other handouts, quick start instructions. Also, when your course is copied over, forms to go through to make sure and check everything. Because I agree with Serge, sometimes your classroom is so good, you don't always check things. So to make sure that everything is ready to start. And so there are some really great resources, and I would suggest that you always start attending those. And as Serge and Ray said too, the 24/7 help desk is excellent through Canvas. They are on it and they are ready. They know what you're talking about when you call to ask. So they're really very, very helpful. So Canvas sessions here that you can sign up through the website, and also the 24/7 help.
My advice would be just to take it slow as well. So I know there are people that wait till the last minute. Frankly, I never have my course completely ready before the semester starts. I would like to be that person one day, but I'm just not. So remember that it's okay to open a module at a time. In fact, the IDC says that's best practice to open 1 or 2 modules. If things are copied over from Blackboard, yes, there's going to be some cleanup, but that doesn't necessarily all have to be taken care of by January 15th. You know, look at the first couple of modules and make sure that looks okay, and then allow yourself some time to set up those later modules as you get closer to them. Plus, that way you're not making the same mistake in every module. You're learning on those first couple, and then you're getting better as you go. So I think, I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to anyone else, because I also have additional courses that are transferred into Canvas for the spring. I'm a little nervous about what I'll find when I start looking at how that Blackboard transition has gone. But, just giving myself the grace to say it doesn't have to be the entire thing. The other thing I would remember is that students are also new to Canvas. So I would suggest on syllabus day, bringing up Canvas, showing them what it looks like a little bit, show them where the syllabus page and the due dates are. Probably a lot of us already do this with Blackboard as well, but students are not necessarily all tech savvy, and tech savviness doesn't necessarily transfer to the LMS. So I've been very transparent with my students this semester. If there's a setting or something I've said, you should be able to see your grade, and they say, we can't, then I'll say, okay, thank you for letting me know. I'm new to Canvas just like you. So I have had to give grace sometimes on deadlines where they didn't really know where to make that submission, or they didn't really realize how the calendar populated, because most of their classes are still in Blackboard. And so I try to give them that flexibility, and then I also ask for it in return. And I say, yeah, sometimes the settings aren't all perfect. I made a mistake. And we're all learning this. So let's not penalize each other for that. And I know that we get stressed out about these changes, and so don't forget that your students are in the same boat. And I think they appreciate that model of honesty.
You know, all that advice is excellent, sound advice that I thoroughly support, particularly the advice of using the resources, the sessions that we've got, recorded sessions that are already in that library. I went through the summer course, so I learned how to develop the Canvas course in the summer. Fall A, we implemented the course, and now it's been 6 weeks or so since that course ended. And I've got another course in spring B that will be in Canvas. And I'm gonna be going back to those resources too, because if I don't use it all the time, I forget this stuff. So we do have that library of excellent sources, resources that will really help us. There's no reason for any frustration and crying in Canvas. It's all doable, but use those resources.
To that point, I will add, right after this session, go onto your calendar, whether it's next week, next month, 3 months from now, and mark off a day and put play in Canvas. And give yourself an entire day to just play around with stuff. Like try making a quiz, try changing a quiz question, try putting together a discussion, try copying and pasting something. Just get in there and play around. You won't get it in the first hour, but I guarantee by the end of the day, you will have figured a lot out and you'll identify what you're still confused about that you can then talk to the IDC or your instructional designer or your peers or look up an extra video about it or whatever it may be, but you'll be able to pinpoint where your pressure points still are, but you just gotta get in there and play around with it.
When the mic wasn't out of arm's reach, I remembered my 2 other features, which I think are important, so I'm gonna mention those. The syllabus and lateness. The syllabus template is there, and at the end of the syllabus template, you have the due dates for everything that you do not have to populate. They are automatically put there, so students can go to the syllabus at any time and see what is due, when, where, and everything. Very great. Along with that, when a student is late, it automatically deducts whatever you want it to based on days. I've had to have, now you can go in, when I figured out, you can go in and modify that lateness, so, you know, things happen. But it's really nice because they see 3 days late, 5% per day, better get on there. So just wanted to mention that. The QM plan, I went in, plan what you want to do. Now, this was important for me because I completely redesigned the course this summer during the Summer Institute. So that's the first thing, see where you want to put things, and they recommend putting things in modules. A lot of us do that already, but it does help. The other thing is we saw that a lot of us had a different design. For me, what works best, both for me and I think for my students seem to like it, is the module page is also the page that I divide into 2 or 3 sections. For instance, here's the objectives, here's what we're going to do, here's what's due. Everything is right there, and then I link everything out of that. So you do it however it's best for you and your students, but that is helpful. And then keep that format so that, like I said, students like that they can find everything in one place. And finally, for me, the last thing is you're able to create the rubrics ahead of time, because in the speed grader, it's really helpful to grade. It works a lot faster, a lot more efficient than in Blackboard. You can just select, and there's a lot of different things you can do. So develop those rubrics. It will help, especially if you have a lot of students.
Okay, that was a lot of really great information. Wonderful stuff. I'm excited about many of the things you're talking about. I am not a Canvas expert by any means. I'm more of on the novice end, so it's been very encouraging to me. I guess the other thing I would say, tips, and I need to take my own advice, get on it sooner rather than later. My guess is lots of people will wait until the summer. And then Blackboard will be gone, of course, and we'll have to be in Canvas. And that's fine. I suspect that you can manage to look at Canvas for the first time during the summer and be okay, probably, but not as good. So don't procrastinate as much as you would like to, perhaps. Maybe get on it. I love the calendar idea, like set a day to play around. We are gonna have, some more professional development sessions coming up. We're gonna do this panel again in the spring. There's also gonna be some professional development about the syllabus template, which you may have heard about. We're gonna get that out there, as well, and the syllabus function in Canvas is really interesting. So there'll be more opportunities to learn about stuff. Try not to wait until the last minute because, as we know, then there's gonna be a big crush in terms of requests to the IDC for support or, and that's gonna be a challenge. So the sooner you can get on it, the better off that you will be, and the better your course will be in the end. So we have time for questions from the audience. So if you're in the room, then speak up, and we hope that our microphones will pick your audio up. If you're from the Zoom room, then Rusty will either tell us what your question is, or again, if you want to unmute, you certainly can do it that way as well. So what questions do you have for the panel?
Okay, we have one in the Zoom room. I would like to hear how long the switch has taken the panelists. I've heard some people say it will take less than 12 hours. And then I know others who are up to 30 hours for one class and still not done with it. I'm concerned this spring about having the time to make the switch for 4 classes when already teaching 4 classes.
That's a great question, and I would also maybe suggest we talk about it relative to copying a course in Blackboard from one semester to the next, which itself was a time-consuming process. So, you know, relative to that, which you might be more familiar with, what was it like to go from Blackboard to Canvas?
All of us?
Yeah, and who wants to take it?
Want that?
Oh, I thought I could start with that. Well, I think based on what we did this summer, many of us redeveloped a course. So I think the time question is always got to be in the context of what exactly are you doing? Is it simply a copy where you're not updating a lot of content, or are you actually going back to the level of doing course mapping and looking at learning objectives and recreating maybe some of your materials? I spent a lot of time this summer, but I was completely redesigning a course. I did not feel like the actual technical aspects of adding files into Canvas was something that took me a long time. So I will say that, and I'll let others comment. The other thing I would say is recently Anna Dunn, formerly Catterson, if you know her by that name, did mention that if you said that you want to transfer 4 classes to Canvas in the spring and you find that that's not manageable, your Blackboard shells are still available. So maybe you want to just transfer 1 course or 2 courses to Canvas in the spring and not tackle all 4. From what I understood from her, that is perfectly acceptable. So I would just encourage you to prioritize, you know, do what you need to do to make that class a good experience for the students and for yourself. And maybe you need that time to learn on that 1 or on those 2. Others have comment about time.
Just to agree. What do you say?
Ray agrees with me.
We agree.
Okay, I did want to add one thing. The other thing too is, even though you're getting your course transfer over Blackboard, anything, any documents that you have, you may also want to save in a separate place in case they don't carry over well or change. So anything that's really important, I would start stockpiling that now in a folder someplace so that you can check back after your course has been converted to Canvas. Were there any mistakes, or do you have to correct anything? I'm seeing some head shakes in agreement here. So look at your documents now in Blackboard. If you're choosing not to do anything, as Matt said, till later in the spring, start saving documents now.
And I think the integration of OneDrive and Google Drive, you know, in Canvas it's much better. But if you have things there, it's really easy to pull them into Canvas and put them in your courses. So that's a great place. And it's, you know, if you do it on the cloud, then it's backed up, and, you know, backup is a hard lesson to learn. Okay.
Sergio's got
I was gonna reiterate something.
Sorry.
I'm just gonna reiterate, coming up with a design that you like, setting it up, maybe taking a picture of it, And that way, as you go from module to module, it won't be as difficult to replicate what you're trying to do. As long, you know, the format should remain the same. So I'm just gonna reiterate that because I think it's gonna make everybody's life a little bit easier.
Okay, other questions? Yes. Here.
So have any of you all used like textbook? Like test banks or anything like that, or like, you know, like third party integrations at all with Canvas yet? Cause like, I know, like I do a lot of my assignments through like McGraw-Hill when Blackboard currently, but I don't know how easy that's gonna be with Canvas.
Anybody done that? No?
Repeat the question for the audience.
So, yeah, the question was, how does LTIs and textbook ancillaries, how do those test banks, all that stuff work? I haven't tried it yet, but I know enough about the business model of LMSs to know that they want to make that as easy as possible. So my guess is, like everything else is easier on Canvas than Blackboard, it's probably easier for that as well. I'm very interested to find out how test banks work because I do use them a lot. And so I'm very excited, very interested to see how easy it is to either add them to my course or give either a link to my course. Do you have something about this?
Yeah, I was in the collaborative.
Oh, good.
too, but I actually did, I used a textbook from McGraw-Hill and we did it for one of my quizzes and it was just seamless. It was
Okay.
a pretty easy process.
Thank you, that's great, awesome. So I think, yeah, it's the basic comment, it's good news.
Hmm.
I've yet to hear anything that people say is harder or worse in Canvas than Blackboard. Oh, yeah. Sure,
Challenge
yeah.
Since we're going to talk about the things that are kind of the, it's not a negative or a downside, just a transition that I have to adjust to. And that is most of my students are classroom teachers. And so I have this belief that they're responsible people and I have flexible deadlines. And 95% of the time that works out, only a few exceptions. So in Blackboard, you get the queue for all the assignments that need to be graded, and you've got everything coming into one place. Whereas in Canvas, what you have to do is go, it's kind of like a matrix, student's name, their grade, or there's an icon showing that there's been a submission. Then you go to that assignment and the speed grader kind of it runs you through all the submissions for that particular assignment, but then when you're done with that assignment, you have to go out and then go to the next assignment, and then the speed grader goes through those. So where I've been used to having maybe 3 or 4 different types of assignments all in the same queue that I just run right through, I've got to step out and go back to the next assignment once I've completed grading whatever the assignments are for that particular week. So it's just a little transition. It's not the end of the world, but it is a difference that I would prefer not to be there.
Other questions?
We have one in the chat. Might be a technical question. What suggestions do you have for how to move contents such as quizzes, question pools, discussion boards from Blackboard to Canvas?
Anybody have an idea? I haven't tried that, I guess.
Well, I'll just say that this question came up at Faculty Senate as well, and I'm gonna rely on Anna Dunn's answer since I don't have a better one. Which is that she indicated that the IDC are there to help with that transition from Blackboard to Canvas. So I think maybe many faculty are not aware of this because we tend to perceive the IDC as people who help us redesign a course or do course mapping and things. But she indicated that they can also be asked to support things like if you have a specific question about how do I transfer these quiz questions, and that they are there to support those kinds of requests. So, you know, I would just encourage you to reach out to them. Again, the earlier the better, as many people have said. Do other people have comments?
I would also say that, you know, whenever I have questions about software, YouTube is almost the first place I look. So There are a lot of YouTube channels about Canvas. Many of the ones I've found have been K-12 educators who use Canvas. They put out, lots and lots of videos about them, and some of the stuff doesn't transfer from K-12 to higher ed, but much of it, even the technical stuff, usually does. So, yeah, I think the IDC is a great, maybe your first place to look. Canvas help, second place look, third place maybe YouTube. Because I think there's gonna be something there.
Asana now has a specific IT request for Canvas stuff.
Oh, okay.
So if you need help.
Uh-huh. So there are lots of ways to get resources from EKU to help you with your specific questions. Absolutely.
Okay, we have another question in the chat. IDs have traditionally been reserved for eCampus courses or those under redevelopment contracts. Will they be more readily available for other courses looking to make design changes as they move to Canvas?
According to what I've been told, yes. That is what has been stated, is that they are not just reserved for those other things. And I think that's a common belief or understanding that faculty have. My understanding is that that looks a little different this year.
And just that goes to the point of get in early and start getting started on your course design, because as the entire campus makes this transition, there may well be some pressures on people's time. But with a new director, Matt Camille, I believe they recently filled a couple designer positions, so I think they're fully staffed as far as I know. They're in progress. In progress, okay. But nevertheless, as everyone puts demands on their time, get it early.
I'm just gonna reiterate that, and I do know that they have hired a lot of designers with the intent, and they know that the onslaught is coming. So I think it's also important to understand that there's an onslaught coming, so we also have to be patient with that.
Awesome. Other questions?
Checking with the Zoom room.
Yeah.
So I've got one that I am wondering about, and a couple of you kind of touched toward it, but I want to delve into it a little further if we can. Are you getting any feedback from students? Because in my mind, I'm seeing students have a class that's using Blackboard, like even this semester, class that's using Blackboard Ultra, and a class that's using Canvas. Are they telling you about any of the functionality? Are they, I mean, maybe when they say nothing, then that's good news, but are they giving you any feedback? Are you asking for any feedback in a formal or informal way? And then what are they saying about it?
I would say that this semester I've had a lot more like late assignments or missing assignments, and I attribute that to the adjustment in platforms. Again, because I kind of early adopted Canvas, all of their other classes are in Blackboard, and I have a group of pretty highly motivated students who tend to be fairly type A, and they usually get their stuff in on time. So that's why I'm attributing it to that difference. And then when I do reach out or I put in a 0 where I ask, hey, what's going on? Then I hear, oh, I didn't understand exactly, or I'm adjusting to Canvas. A lot of times they can't necessarily, or they don't necessarily articulate specifically what is the challenge. So I have kind of started to go back in sometimes and show them, okay, this is every single due date for the course. It populates every single due date. So you might copy that into your Outlook or put that in your paper planner, whatever mechanism you use. So the lateness is one factor. I also pull up Canvas at the beginning of every course and show them exactly what module we're on, what is due at the end of the week. Here are the learning objectives that we're looking at. I am hopeful that that is an educational process for them and that it sets them up to do that even more effectively in the spring. I do plan to collect some feedback, but haven't yet. You know, sometimes feedback is a double-edged sword because it's like, I want to know what they're struggling with. And then on the other hand, sometimes then I'm like, you know, I've done everything I have the capacity or bandwidth to do right now for that. So I think that's a good reminder though. You know, in addition to teacher course evaluations, maybe just having a conversation with them about, you know, what did you like or what did you not like about Canvas? Do other people want to comment?
I'm gonna combine two things. One thing that Maria said and one thing that Serge said that'll help to answer this question too. Maria talked about showing grace to students and Serge talked about having a consistent design week to week or module to module in your course. And I did both of those things and when you use them in tandem, it works really well. In my 16-week class this fall, I had a consistent, I used modules. It just so happened in my course, a module was a week. And every module looked identical. The content was different, but the setup was the same. The due dates were the same, right? So once students were able to master one module, they could master all the others as well. So that first week, really, I gave them about 2. I showed a lot of grace because the first week, the assignment was due on Tuesday and we walked in and I think one person had done it because no one could find it. And that was okay. And we talked about it. We walked back through it. So a lot of grace was shown that first week. The second week, I said, okay, I'll give you a little bit more grace, but let's start jumping on the bandwagon and get going with the course. There were fewer mistakes made that second week. And by the third week, we were all set to go. I have not had a late assignment or any problems since then. So just use both a consistent setup and showing grace in the first week or two, and you should be good.
The comments from some of my students, one comment in particular was night and day was Canvas. So that was good. The other unsolicited comments and probably more of a branding issue was, oh, well, UK have used Canvas for a long time. So I think the impression is, oh, look at EKU, they are coming up in the world.
Great, great answers. Great question about the students. We do want to pay attention to what their experience is like, because that's what it's all about. Other questions from the Zoom room?
No questions in the Zoom room.
Anyone else in the room? A question?
The Zoom group, though, posted many thanks to the panelists. So, thank you.
Right on. Well, it's 5 minutes till the top of the hour, so I guess we'll wrap it up. Thank you to the panel for your time. It's been wonderful to learn about it and inspiring. I will promise not to let it go until August. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Good job.
Good to see you too. Yeah, take care.
Yeah.
Yes, well
That
done.
final push through the end of the semester.
Yeah, this is the good part of the semester.